The ultrasound photo fluttered like a lost leaf when Lydia Hale stepped into the ballroom lights and saw her husband's hand cradle another woman's waist. Cameras flashed. 1,000 whispers rose like wind against glass. "Nathan," she said, voice steady, palms trembling against her belly. Her husband, New York's favorite self-made millionaire, didn't move. The woman in the crimson silk dress tilted her chin and smiled. "We were just leaving," she told the press, loud enough to carry. Lydia's vision narrowed to a tunnel, to the pearly gift box on the charity table, a white ribbon tied like a promise. She had brought it for luck. Instead, the ribbon cut her fingers. She folded the ultrasound back into her clutch, turned away, and vanished. The Park Regent's ballroom smelled like warm vanilla and money. Chandeliers glittered over a maze of silver chafers, donors with summer tans, and waiters practicing invisibility. The Hale Foundation's annual Night of Foundations drew judges, influencers, and the kind of wealthy families whose last names could open doors or close them forever. Lydia Hale had worked for months on the event's maternal health grant line. She wasn't just the wife of Nathan Hale, founder of ArcBright Systems. She was the architect behind the initiative that would underwrite prenatal clinics across the tri-state. In her mind, it was simple. You give mothers dignity, and everything else, jobs, education, safer neighborhoods, has a chance. But simple things rarely survive a room like this. Nathan was late, and Lydia's lower back ached the way it did on long days. 7 months along. The doctor had told her to rest. Rest is a rumor for a woman who knows the life in her belly is counting on her to keep moving. She kept checking the entrance, fearing and then finally seeing him. Nathan in classic black, shoulders squared, hair a little longer than before. He wasn't alone. The woman beside him was a problem you couldn't unsee. Sloane Mercer, ArcBright's sharp-jawed COO, whose efficiency had saved the company twice in the early days, and whose eyes always seemed to be measuring what you cost. Cameras recognized it before Lydia could name it. Not a rumor, not a strategic pairing for optics. An intimacy that made people look away. Sloane touched Nathan's wrist like she owned the courtesies of his body, and a photographer caught it. The quiet, damning touch that can ruin a decade. "Mrs. Hale," said a reporter with a mic made of false empathy. "How does it feel to see your husband arrive with Ms. Mercer?" "Excuse me," Lydia said softly. She touched the white ribbon on the gift box she'd placed at the charity table. Inside was a simple card, hand-lettered. For safe beginnings. She had thought of opening the Gala with it, a symbol and a story, the first portable Doppler for a Queen's clinic. All she could do now was make it through the night without outlawing her own heart. She intercepted Nathan near the bar. "We were supposed to walk in together," she said, forcing a smile that felt like splinters. "I texted," he said, eyes searching her face, and then skittering away. Sloane appeared at his shoulder like a closing door. "We were pulled into a donor huddle," she said. "Unplanned. Like life," Lydia said. "And babies." For an instant, something flared behind Sloane's poise. An old bruise, or a calculation misfiring. Then a photographer called Nathan's name, and Sloane turned, offering that camera-ready half-smile. Lydia stepped back. "You don't wrestle on marble floors," speeches began. She made hers, short, clean, focused on the clinics. While she spoke, Lydia scanned the front table. Sloane sat in the seat that was supposed to be Lydia's when she'd planned the run of show months ago. Nathan's phone lit the underside of his jaw. When the applause died, he clapped late. At the end of the night, Lydia found a quiet corner near the service exit, pressed a palm under the weight of her belly, and let 2 tears escape. She wasn't fragile. She was furious at how the world asks women to forgive before anyone admits a wound. Her phone vibrated, a text from an unknown number. Your husband moved money. Ask about Resilience Fund too. Don't confront him tonight. And don't open the white box. Lydia stared at the ribbon she had tied herself. It lay on the table where donors had left their envelopes. The note wasn't possible, but here it was. She took a breath, snapped a photo of the text, and tucked the phone away. Moments later, when the clatter of breakdown filled the ballroom, Lydia eased the box into her tote bag, walked out under the sleeping chandeliers, and made a decision that would change the trajectory of a dozen lives. She didn't go home. She disappeared. The night train from Grand Central breathed like a living thing. Lydia chose it because trains carry secrets, as if they were just more passengers losing themselves in the windows. She rode to her sister's in Stamford, not trusting the driver on her usual route, not trusting anything that might report her movement. Samantha answered her door in an oversized Quinnipiac sweatshirt, hair in a topknot, face scrubbed clean. "What happened?" she asked, pulling Lydia in. Sisters don't waste time on hello when your eyes are glassed with the reflection of a life detonating. Lydia told her almost everything. The gala, the entrance, Sloane's hand at Nathan's wrist, the text from no one. She left out the years of small compromises, the business dinners where Sloane was the one who laughed at Nathan's jokes too hard, the board retreats where Lydia had been introduced as the heart of our philanthropy, like that was a harmless demotion. She left out the nights Nathan slept in the city and came home smelling of hotel soap. Some silences are just mercy you give yourself, because pregnancy amplifies every story until it crushes the air. "You can't go back," Sam said plainly. "I'm not running," Lydia said. "I'm buying time." "Time for what?" "To see who I married," she said, "and who's trying to ruin us." Sam fetched the go bag she kept for storm evacuations. "Stay here," she said. "I'll call Dr. Kwan to switch your next appointments, and we'll call a lawyer first thing." Lydia set the white box on the kitchen island. The ribbon stared up at her. Don't open the white box. The note had told her it was dangerous. But how dangerous? Poison was melodrama. Still, her palm tingled where the ribbon had cut her earlier. "Sam," Lydia said. "Gloves." Sam stared. "You think—" "I think someone didn't want me to open it," she said, "which is exactly why I need to know what's inside." Sam handed her dish gloves with cartoon lemons on them. Lydia sliced the tape with a butter knife and eased back the lid. Tissue paper. A smaller velvet pouch tied with twine. Lydia's heart pounded. She opened the pouch. Inside, nestled like a dare, was a baby rattle carved in pale wood, etched with the words, "A gift from family." "Creepy," Sam muttered. "There's a smell," Lydia said. Faint, metallic, wrong. Not poisonous on its own. She didn't know what poison smelled like, but not just wood. The handle was sticky. Someone had brushed something onto it that didn't belong. A rash flared across her glove. Sam inhaled. "We're calling the police." "Not yet," Lydia said. "We call Dr. Kwan. If this is toxic, we need a sample properly bagged. You always were the lab partner teachers loved," Sam said. "And I always hated shortcuts." She closed the pouch, slid it back into the box, and used a clean ziplock to wrap the whole thing. "Tonight I'm resting. Tomorrow we act." They sat at Sam's small table, the cheap wood scarred with years of coffee mugs. Lydia pressed her forehead to the cool surface. She thought of the text again. "Your husband moved money. Ask about Resilience Fund too." Outside, a siren stitched through the dark. Inside, Lydia whispered, "If Sloane thinks she can take my life while I'm making one, she has no idea who I was before I married Nathan." Sam's eyes warmed. "Remind me," she said. I was the woman who could balance a clinic budget to pennies, Lydia said. The woman who rebuilt after Dad left, who learned how to read ledgers and lies. And you're still her, Sam said. Then let's go find the ledger, Lydia replied. Sloane Mercer slid her bare feet onto the heated marble of Nathan's penthouse bathroom and watched the city braid itself into dawn. She'd slept 2 hours, not because she'd been with Nathan. He had retreated to his office to get in front of headlines, but because plans are more exhilarating than sleep. On her phone, a deck labeled Transition Framework waited for final polish. Resilience Fund 2 had been her idea, pitched to Nathan as a rainy day vehicle when regulators sniffed around their aggressive acquisitions. He called it prudent. She called it the first plank of the bridge she was building to a life no one would be able to take away again. She remembered the way poverty had made promises to her mother in Indiana, promises that bills could be paid if she smiled hard enough at the man who owned the laundromat. Sloane had studied every night by the hum of machines until she earned scholarships, internships, whatever. Ships pulled her away from that town and toward rooms where decisions were made by people who'd never smelled bleach. She didn't hate Lydia. That would have been a waste. She pitied the gentleness that mistook philanthropy for power. But pity has a short shelf life when it blocks air. Her phone buzzed. A message from T. Rattle delivered. No confirmation. You sure about this? I'm sure about everything, Sloane typed. Then deleted. Proceed as planned, and keep your face out of this. She opened a hidden notes app. The list was spare and neat. Secure board votes. Already 3. Need 2 more. Press narrative. Compassionate repositioning. Nathan exhausted. Lydia under care. Sloane stepping in to stabilize. Legal flank. Pre-draft separation statement with mutual respect. Boilerplate. Gift. Catalyst event, if required. She wasn't a monster, she told herself. She would have preferred clean lines, amicable statements, staged photos, a year of transition that didn't bruise reputations. But power hates a vacuum, and Lydia's public vanishing threatened to turn sympathy into scrutiny at exactly the wrong moment. The gift, as a narrative device, would force the board to consolidate behind Sloane for safety's sake and keep journalists out of corners that mattered. Nathan padded in, tireless, eyes bruised from a night with his conscience. Where is she? He asked. Your PR firm thinks she went to her sister's, Sloane said. They're doing soft outreach. This isn't what I wanted, he said. And for a flicker, Sloane saw the kid Nathan used to be. Brilliant, intent, terrified of being alone. It rarely is, Sloane said. But we don't get to pause. We need a statement before markets open. He rested a hand on the counter, as if trying to steady the whole floor. I never promised you any of this, he said. And I never asked for promises, Sloane replied. I asked for partnership. Nathan looked up, and in that look was the truth she'd trained herself to ignore. He didn't understand the difference. She adjusted the collar of his shirt, smoothing the fabric like a seamstress who knows the suit will be photographed. I'll draft the statement, she said. We lead with concern for Lydia's health, gratitude for privacy, and a heartfelt commitment to the Foundation's work. And you? He asked. I'm the colleague who stepped up when you needed me, she said. Nothing more, nothing less. They both recognized the lie and accepted it because it was useful. At 9 a.m., Lydia sat on the crinkly paper in Dr. Kwan's office while rain thudded against the windows. Dr. Kwan examined her with the efficient gentleness only seen in clinicians who've delivered thousands of babies and still know each mother is one universe. You're measuring well, Dr. Kwan said. Heartbeat strong. Lydia swallowed relief like water. I have another concern. She explained the box and the rattle, the sticky film on the handle, the rash across the glove. Dr. Kwan listened without flinching. You did the right thing not touching it bare-handed. Leave it with me. I'll send it to a lab that owes me favors. No police yet. I want to be sure, Lydia said. Caution isn't cowardice, Dr. Kwan replied. She printed a new appointment schedule under the alias L. Sutter, then lowered her voice. Whatever story you're in, you're not alone. From there, Lydia and Sam drove to a co-working space in Norwalk, where the air smelled like highlighters and ambition. Lydia set up at a corner desk with a rented laptop and a stack of printouts. She had 2 ways into Arkwright's private accounts: old board packets and Nathan's habit of emailing himself notes with subject lines like, "Don't forget." He was brilliant, but his brilliance created a wake of carelessness he had always expected women to tidy. The phrase Resilience Fund, too, surfaced in a draft memo: liquidity reserve for strategic contingencies, seeded via discretionary philanthropy allocations, tax advantages to be explored. Another email showed transfers from the foundation to a donor-advised fund with a matching name and a shadow board of trustees, none of whom were Lydia. She circled numbers, cross-referenced dates. The pattern resolved. Money was moving in concentric circles that all led back to Sloane's hands. Not theft, something slicker. The foundation's rainy day dollars were being repositioned beyond Lydia's stewardship toward a vehicle that would let Sloane shape the company and its narrative without Lydia in the room. Sam leaned over her shoulder. Is it illegal? Maybe not, Lydia said, but it's a moral fraud, diverting power out of public view. Can you stop it? Lydia exhaled. Only if we change the story. Her phone buzzed. A new unknown number. You're being watched. He'll say he didn't mean to. He rarely does. Ask about the cabin. The cabin, Lydia typed. Who are you? No reply. She closed her eyes and saw the cabin they'd rented once near Phoenicia, with a deck like an outstretched palm and a bed built over storage drawers. Nathan had written code at that cabin for 20 hours straight, while she made soup and read out loud from a book on birth stories, both of them pretending that her longing and his hunger were the same thing. It had been their brief, bright season. If there was another cabin, she didn't know it. Wherever we start, Lydia said, we finish in a courtroom. You ready for that? Sam asked. I am if our baby needs me to be, Lydia said. And if the other mothers in those clinics need me to be. She tapped the email icon and began composing a message to an attorney, known for making the rich remember what accountability feels like. Nathan Hale had always believed that if he could solve a problem with code, he could solve it everywhere. He had made a fortune off algorithms that learned from messy data. The mess at home should have been no different. Take inputs, issue outputs, adjust. But people refuse to be datasets. He read the first draft of the PR statement Sloane had sent. In light of ongoing health considerations, the family requests privacy. The Hale Foundation's work continues uninterrupted under the steady leadership of our executive team, including COO Sloane Mercer. He deleted the word steady leadership and typed dedicated team, then deleted that and typed nothing, because every adjective felt like a lie. He called Lydia twice, straight to voicemail. Liddy, it's me. I need to see you. I need to fix this. Please call. He tried not to imagine her face when she saw that photo of him and Sloane. He tried not to remember the first time he'd crossed the thin moral wire between gratitude and taking. How quick it had been. How easily he'd told himself he was lonely. How he had believed that success atoned for confusion. Somewhere along the way, he had let Sloane become the person who knew his fears, because she made them profitable. Now Lydia was gone, and Sloane was everywhere. He met Sloane and the board in a glass conference room that made Midtown look like a scale model of itself. We're stabilizing, Sloane said briskly. Donors are spooked, but they'll follow strength. We emphasize continuity and care. "What about Lydia?" he asked. "We respect her privacy," Sloane said. "We don't weaponize the public. We also don't let a personal situation create systemic risk." "Systemic risk," Nathan repeated. "You mean me?" "I mean us," Sloane said levelly. "The mission. The thousands of employees whose mortgages depend on us not making emotional decisions in a crisis. The board chair, a woman in her 70s with pearls you didn't joke about, folded her hands. "Nathan," she said, "a clean story saves more than a messy truth. We expect you to make one." He nodded, because nodding was what you do when $7 billion worth of market cap watches your neck move. After the meeting, he took the elevator alone to the parking garage, where the concrete made everything honest. He called the number he hadn't dialed in 5 years. "Detective Ruiz?" he said, when the voice answered. "It's Nathan Hale. I need to know how to find someone without using a PI who'll sell it to Page 6, Ruiz sighed. "You tech guys," she said. "You want privacy until you want a miracle." "She's my wife," he said. "And she's pregnant." There was a pause long enough to age him. "Text me what you have," Ruiz said at last. "And Nathan? If she doesn't want you to find her, there may be a reason your money can't fix." He leaned his head against the steering wheel and understood what he'd been avoiding. He wasn't a victim of Sloane. He was a collaborator. Even if the poisoned gift wasn't his idea, he had built the house where it might feel necessary. The lab called Dr. Kwan at noon, and Dr. Kwan called Lydia immediately. "It's not the kind of poison you see in movies," Dr. Kwan said, careful, measured. But there were traces of an irritant mixed with a compound that could be dangerous to a newborn with skin contact. Not lethal to you at this dose, but deeply reckless. "Who would do that?" Sam demanded on speaker. "The world is full of people who think outcomes justify methods," Dr. Kwan said. "I'm reporting it anonymously to a toxicologist I trust, off the record for now. You should keep the item and any packaging in a sealed bag as potential evidence." Lydia thanked her, hung up, and stared at the Ziploc on the table. The words, "a gift from family," burned hot and wrong. Her lawyer, Ava Grady, whose voice sounded like she sharpened it on nonsense, arrived with a yellow legal pad and a calm that made Lydia feel suddenly less alone. "You did right leaving the city," Ava said, after listening to the whole story. "We'll file for protective orders and an injunction to freeze movement from the Foundation to any new funds without dual signatures." "Can we stop Sloane?" Sam asked. "We can slow her," Ava said. "Stopping comes from narrative and facts. We need emails, texts, board minutes, the names of anyone who saw too much and decided to look away." "My husband," Lydia said. It surprised her, not because it wasn't true, but because saying it out loud felt like stepping onto a new planet. Ava didn't flinch. "Would he flip?" "He's already falling," Lydia said quietly. "But I don't know what direction." That night, Lydia slept for 3 hours, woke to her son kicking like a small drummer, and whispered to him, "You're my metronome. We're going to keep time." In the city, Sloane prepped for the board's emergency alignment session, the phrase she'd chosen so no one had to say coup. She rehearsed the script. Lydia has stepped away for health. Nathan remains visionary, but needs operational guardrails. Donors require steadiness. She breathed through her nose and counted backward from 100, the trick she'd learned to keep panic from staining her voice. Then everything tilted. Her phone lit with a photo message from an unknown number. The baby rattle, gloved hands, lab bag. The caption, "We see you. We'll see you in court." She typed back, fingers flashing. "Who is this?" No reply. She looked up at the city's dark, glossy face. The gift had been meant as leverage, not harm, a narrative push, not a crime. She had told herself that a little scare would consolidate the board without the spectacle of scandal. But the lab bag meant evidence. Evidence meant trials, headlines, and a past she had kept sealed. At 2:15 a.m., the penthouse intercom buzzed. Nathan's voice. "I'm coming up." She wiped her face, smoothed her blouse, opened the door. Nathan stepped in with rain across his shoulders and a look she recognized. The moment a person recognizes themselves. "Where is Lydia?" he asked. "I don't know," Sloane said truthfully, "but I think she knows about the fund." "So fix it," he said. "Undo it." "It doesn't undo," she said, jaw tight. "It transitions. From us to you," he said. That's what all of this was for, wasn't it? The gala, the photo, the press, the gift. The last word dropped between them like a stone in a lake. Sloane's eyes flicked. Barely. Enough. "You think I'd hurt her? She's pregnant." "I think you'd do whatever you could narrate as leadership," he said, "and I think I helped you believe it." He took a step back, as if he had come to the edge of a roof in fog. "I'm calling Ruiz," he said. "I'm finding Lydia, and I'm going to tell her everything I know." Sloane held his gaze. "You do that, and the board replaces you by morning. Then maybe morning is what I deserve," he said, and left. Sloane closed the door and slid down to the floor. For the first time in years, she thought of the laundromat, the pocketed quarters, the ache of bleach in her hands, her mother's smile too thin to survive. She had sworn she would never be poor again. She hadn't sworn she would never be cruel. The difference is important until it isn't. Detective Ruiz found the cabin. It wasn't the one with the drawer bed. It was a place Nathan had quietly bought during a liquidity event 3 years ago, deeded to a shell company with a name too boring to notice. He had meant it as a surprise for Lydia, he told himself at the time, a retreat for when they needed a place to go quiet. He had never shown her because he was always about to. And then there was another flight, another acquisition, another argument he couldn't face. Ruiz texted Lydia through Ava Grady with an address and a choice. Meet Nathan with counsel, or let him talk to the trees. Lydia chose to meet. Sam insisted on driving. Ava arranged a second car to wait down the road in case everything went wrong. They arrived at dusk. The cabin sat wrapped in pine and fog, a wide porch, windows like patient eyes. Nathan stood on the steps in a coat he didn't have the right to look that young in. Lydia stepped out carefully, one hand under her belly. "You bought a secret," she said. He flinched. "I thought it would be a surprise. Then I thought it would be a refuge. Then I thought I'd missed my chance to tell you anything without hurting you more. And now? Now I think it's evidence," he said, "of who I became when I stopped being the person you could trust." Sam stayed by the car. Ava stood 4 paces back, phone in hand, but recording nothing. This had to be human before it could be legal. They went inside. The cabin was warm from a fire he had lit badly. Lydia sat on the arm of the couch, keeping distance because it helps people tell the truth. Nathan spoke, halting at first, then, with the rhythm of a man emptying a backpack he'd carried for miles. He told her how admiration had become dependence, how Sloane never asked for what she took. She made him offer it so he would believe it was his idea. He told her about the fund, the board, the gifts they groomed for donors. He swore he hadn't planned anything that could harm her. That the gift was meant to steer a narrative, not endanger their child. "You let her write our story," Lydia said, "and she penned me out of it." He nodded, eyes blurring. "I'm sorry," he said simply. Not "I'm sorry if," or "I'm sorry but." "I'm sorry. I forgot that my vows weren't part of a cap table." Lydia felt anger and love tangle into something new, dangerous if mishandled, powerful if shaped. "I want the fund frozen," she said. "I want full transparency. I want the board to know about the box, And I want Sloane nowhere near the clinics. Done, he said, whatever it costs me. She studied him. The man she married had always been there, hidden under his fear of failure. Sometimes redemption is not a return. It's a reintroduction. You'll testify? Ava asked from the doorway, stepping into the moment like a lighthouse. Under oath? Nathan met Lydia's eyes. I will, he said, because this time I pick the story I can live with. Please state your name for the record. Nathan Alexander Hale. And your current role? Founder and Executive Chair, ArcBright Systems. What is Resilience Fund 2? A vehicle established at the direction of our COO, Sloane Mercer, and myself, to provide liquidity for strategic contingencies. Did the Hale Foundation, chaired by your wife, transfer funds to vehicles aligned with Resilience Fund 2 without her informed consent? Yes, gasps bloom in a courtroom, the way weather moves over fields, fast, absolute, and ignorant of who's ready. The judge rapped once, not unkindly. Lydia felt the baby turn, as if to find the voice that sounded like home but had not been safe. She sat between Ava and Sam, hands folded, jaw set. Sloane sat behind her counsel, stillness perfected. Her attorney asked clean questions with surgical calm. Ms. Mercer, did you ever authorize a gift designed to harm Mrs. Hale or her child? No, Sloane said, voice even. I authorized a series of symbolic gifts to highlight program goals. I would never endanger a mother. I was that child once, the one who needed systems to work. Do you know how the rattle came to be tainted with an irritant? I do not. Lydia believed that answer. The poison had not been Sloane's. The poison was culture. This casual brutality, dressed in the silk of efficiency. The story that says, if a woman stands in the way of a project, you move her story somewhere softer and call it care. But someone had handled that object with intent. And Ava had found them. The courtroom waited as a man in an ill-fitting suit took the stand, hands shaking. State your name. Travis Cole, he whispered. He had been a minor consultant for a PR firm attached to the foundation, a man with little power and less judgment, easily overawed by proximity. I was told to prepare a gift box for a photo op. I added something to the wood to create a reaction on contact, nothing serious, just to make a scene. I thought it would accelerate decisions. Who told you to do this? The prosecutor asked. No one. He stared at his lap. I thought it would impress Ms. Mercer, he said finally, the words falling like a bad confession into winter air. She didn't ask for it. I just wanted to be the guy who fixed problems. Sloane didn't blink, but a flash of hurt, real, clean, crossed her face. It was the hurt of being misread by the kind of man who thinks proximity is permission. Lydia felt a complicated mercy unfurl. The world is crueler in men like Travis than in women like Sloane, because chaos plus worship can be deadlier than strategy. The judge recessed. In the hall, reporters made a river. Ava knew how to step around them like stones. She whispered to Lydia, "We'll win the injunction. We'll secure the clinics, the accounting, and the narrative. Then we decide which walls to rebuild and which to leave down." Lydia leaned against a cool marble pillar. Nathan approached with Ruiz at his side. "Thank you," he said. Not as a plea, as a statement. "We're not done," Lydia said. "I know," he replied. "But I wanted you to hear me say it, while the air still smells like court. I will spend the rest of my life earning how you look at me, or I will step aside so you can live without my shadow." She nodded. "Start with the board, then the press, then home," she said, choosing each word carefully, like stones across a stream. The injunction held. Funds froze where they were, and a forensic audit began. Donors were briefed privately with numbers and with Lydia's calm, unadorned voice explaining how transparency is a form of care. She didn't turn herself into a saint. She turned numbers into promises again. And the donors, many of them women who had smiled through nights like hers, began to smile differently. Less performative, more real. Sloane resigned 2 weeks later with a statement that read like a lesson plan. Stewardship requires stepping back when forward motion causes harm. She kept a small piece of stock and a larger piece of dignity. Lydia insisted on that in the negotiations. "You can leave with your name," she told Sloane across a small table, "but not with my work." Sloane blinked, then nodded. "I wish I had learned to be gentler sooner," she said. "It takes longer, but it lasts longer." "Gentleness isn't slow," Lydia said softly. "It's thorough." Nathan moved out of the penthouse and into the cabin for a season that had a first day and no promise of a last. He commuted hard, learned to ask his assistant not for bandwidth, but for boundaries, and went to therapy with a humility that startled the therapist into a small smile. He returned the chairmanship of the foundation to a permanent co-governance model, Lydia, and a rotating independent co-chair. He would be the one doing the reports, the updates, the quiet work of rebuilding trust from task one. The day their son was born, rain feathered the hospital windows, and the city felt almost tender. Nathan stood beside Lydia, not like a guard, but like a student, and cried in the quiet, grateful way that doesn't demand to be seen. They named the baby Jonah, after a story about running and being returned. 3 months later, at a small ceremony in Queens, Lydia cut a ribbon at the new clinic. The ribbon was white, but softer than the one that had cut her hand. She tied a second ribbon to the clinic's mural, a strip from the dress she'd worn the night she disappeared, now stitched into something that caught light. The mothers who'd waited in the rain came in laughing, shaking umbrellas, telling babies who they were about to become. Sloane watched from across the street. She had taken a position with a small rural health non-profit in Indiana that needed someone who understood chaos and how to reduce it without pressing anyone's face into a narrative. She had stopped answering messages from men who loved her for her efficiency. She had started calling her mother again. Detective Ruiz sent a photo from the back of the crowd. Lydia, scissors raised, Jonah on her hip, Nathan clapping like he was learning the motion for the first time. "Sometimes we get the good ending," Ruiz texted. "Don't get used to it. But don't distrust it either." Ava beside Lydia whispered. "You ready for your statement?" Lydia nodded. She kept it simple. "This clinic exists because we remembered a basic truth. Power used to protect the vulnerable multiplies. Power used to protect itself dies on contact. Today, we choose the first kind." The crowd cheered like family. After, while the last cupcake wrappers were swept into a bin and Jonah slept against her chest, Lydia found Sloane across the street. They regarded each other in the cold light two women share when they've learned different lessons from the same storm. "Thank you for not destroying me," Sloane said. "I didn't have to," Lydia replied. "You're not my enemy." "And Nathan?" Sloane asked. "He's the father of my child," Lydia said. "He's learning how to be a man who doesn't need forgiveness to feel whole." Sloane smiled, small and honest. "I'll learn too." "We all will," Lydia said. She went back inside, kissed Jonah's forehead, and let the smell of lemon cleanser and new paint fill her throat like hope. In the end, no one got the story they thought they wanted. Lydia didn't get the fairy tale. Nathan didn't get the clean genius. Sloane didn't get the crown. They got something better. A truer kind of life that could hold all the contradictions. The love that failed and learned. The power that hurt and then helped. The ambition that found a different rhythm. Lydia didn't forgive to be noble. She forgave the parts that could be redeemed and replaced the rest with boundaries. Nathan understood at last that integrity isn't a headline but a daily habit, and Sloane, who once built empires out of fear, began building safety out of care. If this story moved you, if you saw yourself in Lydia's grit, Nathan's reckoning, or Sloane's hard-won humility, please tap like, share it with a friend who needs a good cry and a good ending, and subscribe for more heartfelt, cinematic dramas. Your support helps bring more stories about courage, second chances, and the power of women to the screen. Until the next chapter, take care of your heart, and let it take care of you.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.